Hello and welcome back to I had to start again. Well, hello and welcome back to Atmosphere Electric. I'm Rich and there's Fran. How are you, bud?
Yeah. I'm very well, thank you.
Yeah, guess who just had a coffee? It hasn't worked, or it's worked a bit too well. It feels like we only spoke yesterday. It feels like this is very close together. Only yesterday it feels like, of course, it wasn't. And since then, loads has happened, including us being entirely useless at predicting football results.
Well, you were slightly better than me, but
Yeah, I mean that's
yeah, you got 3 and I got 1. But I can't tell you. I think that's got to be the most unpredictable game week of all time. I think if you've got 5 in that, you've done remarkably well. Every favourite turned over. Teams winning from out of nowhere. That was got to have been the most unpredictable and the worst. For me, that was the most boring game week I've ever seen.
Oh, I thought Manchester United did a phenomenal job in the early kickoff. I thought that was an exciting game. I thought that was, I was very disappointed with Man City, but it's always that adage, isn't it, of who's done well, who's done badly, and where's the middle ground. But I agree. Beyond that, of course, there was a 0-0 on Saturday night. There was a 0-0 early kickoff, 0-1, 1-1. So I get your point, but for me, it was kind of made up by the early kickoff that I thought was a thoroughly enjoyable game and one that Man United fans will live in the memory for a very, very long time.
Well, the ironic thing as well of where we said that Man City wasn't the game of the game week anymore.
Yeah.
It turned out to be that, didn't it? Because, in my opinion, look at some of the other games. A lot of the other games were very, very poor, lacking in goals, lacking in quality. I said that not many teams keep clean sheets anymore. There was quite a few in that game week.
Yeah, look, I think it's interesting on many levels, isn't it? Obviously, there's a transfer window that's still open that hasn't really still caught fire. Obviously, there's lots of managerial conversations taking place in terms of either an interim coming in, a new manager that's just come in, managers that are on the hot seat in terms of someone that's looking to be kind of fired. So it feels like it's a real transitional piece of the season without it really transitioning that much. There's lots that could happen, but not a lot of it has. And I wonder whether the football's suffering because of it.
I think so. I mean, a team that you can say are definitely suffering because of transfers and manager at Crystal Palace. They seem to be in absolute turmoil, don't they? They don't know whether the manager's going to be here. Well, we know he's not going to be here at the end of the season, but he might not even be here until the next game. They've lost the best players recently. They seem to be in turmoil, and I think a few other clubs are sort of replicating that. You just don't know what's happening with the managers and some of the key players.
Yeah, it's the domino effect of football is always one to be mindful of, and what Real Madrid did last week with Xabi Alonso. I'm hearing more and more about the risk to Slot and his job now that Alonso's available, because obviously they really want him to be, and they don't want to wait till the summer in case they miss him. Liverpool, if Arne Slot becomes available, actually, every other club in the Premier League would want a little bit of Arne Slot, so that becomes an interesting piece of work. Obviously, Oliver Glasner just got to the end of his tether, didn't he, losing Mark Gahey? I'm a little bit surprised he's surprised, because I think, we all knew it was happening. So his kind of meltdown caught me a little bit off guard. And you'd hope that Crystal Palace knew he was coming and they've got somebody coming in to replace him. It's just not ready for, Saturday's game against Sunderland, which I predicted Sunderland would win regardless of who was playing for Crystal Palace anyway.
Well, I only went for 1-1 because I originally did have it as 1-0, and I scribbled out the note as we were talking, and I didn't realise Mateta was out. So that as sort of that unfolded a little bit more, I said, I would 100% have plumped for Sunderland there. But I mean, it's difficult with the Palace thing, isn't it? Because you just don't know what he's been told. By the sounds of it, he's sent an email to the manager and to the owner, and it's not been answered. And whether that's around, he was promised that Gray wouldn't be sold in this window, that he'd be allowed to go on a free. But I mean, that's just stupid ownership, allowing a player of that quality to walk when you can get 20 million for them now. That's just stupid. So, I mean, I don't think he's got a leg to stand on there. I do feel for them, for the highs of winning the FA Cup and the team that they had that finished that season to now, when you look at it, it's very quickly started to look a threadbare 11, hasn't it? Let alone a squad. I mean, there's still some very good players in there, Adam Wharton, there's still some good players there. So it's not that they look like the worst team in the league, but very quickly that's gone from a sparkling 11 to a very, very bog standard Premier League 11.
I listened to someone, again, forgive me, whoever it was, so apologies, I can't name check you, but it was on TNT, I think, talking about how these clubs like Palace, like Brighton, like Leicester back in the days, don't want to fly too near the sun, because what happens is that you put a spotlight on yourself, which means the big guns come and basically pillage your squad. And that's, of course, with Palace winning the FA Cup and playing some great football has happened to them. Mateta is now being linked to Juventus. Obviously, Gay, was always going to be going soon. Eze leaving, Elise before that. And you can't replace that quality of player. Brennan Johnson, with all due respect, Ismail Sarr was there, but, Yerry, what's his name?
Yeremy Pino.
Pino, that's okay. Getting my Yeremies confused. They're not at the same level as those guys. So you are going to struggle to keep maintaining that level. And so I don't really know what Palace kind of really wanted from it, other than obviously, you're bringing an ambitious manager in, and the key thing you have to do in those situations is keep finding ways of replacing those outgoing players with players that can adapt to your system and keep your level as close as possible, which is what Brighton have always been able to do so far.
I was just about to say that what you just said at the end is you've almost got to replicate Brighton and sell them at their peak of profit and try and turn that into 3 players that boost your squad. So when you do lose one, you've got an extra 3 coming in. And you've just got to try and keep recycling that model until you get to a level of where you can then say, you're getting up to the Newcastles, the Spurs, and then from there, you've got to keep trying to recycle. But you're not going to be able to go from winning the FA Cup to being a consistent top 4, top 6 team. So there's teams that have attempted it and they've just been cherry-picked. It's virtually impossible until you can get that income level up. And, the top clubs, that's why they're the top clubs, because they can go and spend 100 million. A player can flop and it doesn't affect them. A Palace does that, spends 50 million on a player. They could be screwed for years. So you've got to be very, very careful. You've got to, be very clever. And that's why I think the Guehi sale, 20 million for somebody who's out of contract is gold dust, isn't it?
Yep. I'm surprised they only got 20 million, if I'm honest with you. I thought they were looking for sort of nearer 30, but you're right. You can't turn down 20 million pound. They'll be looking at the league table going, unless the world collapses, we're not getting relegated. So, they're pretty much guaranteed Premier League football next season. They're not going to get Champions League football. They've probably sacrificed their European run. But again, it's not like they've been tearing too many trees up. They've got a playoff to doing that. So, and there is still 10 days of the window left for them to go and sign replacements for some of these players. But of course, who do you get at the January window? It seems that the January transfer window has proven to be even more difficult than normal, although Man City seems to be playing to a different set of rules, because, you think about so many teams beneath them that could all do with reinforcements, and literally none of them have added any of any worth.
Man City are doing what Manchester United used to do back in the days. They're bullying the rest of the league, aren't they, financially? And they're going, we know Gray's out of contract, we'll take him. We know Semenyu's got a release clause, we'll take him. So straight away, taking the best player from 2 teams below them, weaken the league and strengthen them. When I look at Palace, the only thing that they can do is that 20 million has to be reinvested in this window.
Yep.
They need to buy a centre-half, and they need to probably buy another attacking midfielder. Or a winger, somebody who's creative. And, they're going to be shopping in a different pool to what Man City, aren't they? So they're going to have to do what Brighton do and look abroad and try and pinch young, hungry players with ability, because that has to be the model. You're not going to pick up players who are out of contract for 20 million like Man City.
And again, I don't want to keep banging the same drum, but Crystal Palace are revered and renowned within the academy structure for having one of the best sort of setups and group of young players that come through. Surely you have some that can dip their toe in the first team. Surely, I keep banging my head, and this, like, literally, what is the point if you don't trust any of them to even give it a go? Like, again, you're safe, right? You're not going down, you're not going up. So if you can't do it now, when are you ever going to do it? Like, it just makes no sense to me what this sort of strategy is of continuously buying new players that don't really care about the badge. You're only here for the money. Whereas actually, if you could really make South London your bedrock of, kind of the future and everything that comes through, you could set Crystal Palace up forever. And it becomes that model of we recruit young players, we turn them into first team players, we sell them for 50 to 100 million, and we build the club off the back of that success. And there's always a conveyor belt of new young South London talent, because that is the hotbed. We all talk about it. We know that that's where loads of players come from. Surely that's how you maintain the success over a period of time. It doesn't matter if you sell Mark Gahey for 20 million or 150 million. You've got the next big thing coming off the conveyor belt.
Palace have sort of done it slightly different, haven't they? Rather than bringing them in and bringing them into an academy, they've almost bought not even players that have failed at clubs. Guehi was from Chelsea. Elise was Reading, I think.
Yeah.
where was Eze? Eze was
QPR.
QPR. So they've almost gone around London and pinched young players who are, almost missing out the academy step. And I think that's what they've got to keep doing, haven't they? Trying to find talent and saying to them, like they have done with those two players, you will be in our first team. They did it with Roman Esse. I think he came from Millwall, I think it was. So, that's been their model more than beefing up their academies. They almost skipped the academy part and bought them where they're 20, 21, and then allow them to develop from there. So, I mean, if they're going to go down that model, then they need to keep doing it, don't they? 2, 3, 4 players, boost that squad with some players, develop them, and go again.
Yeah, like I think there are a really big 10 days left in the transfer window. There's Champions League football. There's obviously another set of fixtures this weekend. There's obviously managerial positions that we will no doubt touch on as we go through the fixtures. But it's a massive, massive 10 days for lots of Premier League clubs at both the top and of course the bottom. But before we dive into that, we haven't spoke about this, so I don't know if you watched it. I don't know if you know anything about it, but we have to just spend a couple of minutes talking about what was, in my humble opinion, one of the most bizarre set of circumstances that I've ever seen having watched football. The AFCON final on Sunday night, Morocco versus Senegal. Firstly, did you catch it? Did you watch it live?
I have a guess what minute I tuned in on. I tuned in on about the 89th minute.
Oh, wow, you're a lucky man. Yeah, well done.
Had to put my kids to bed. So I think I saw it was obviously 0-0 and then caught the remainder of the game, which was just phenomenal. I didn't realise this whole thing with the towel as well. Apparently, it's been going on throughout the tournament, but it was obviously really publicised with the final. I mean, what's all that about? Imagine that in a World Cup. I mean, it's just blatant cheating, isn't it? Like there's got to be something done about that. The towel, and then going on to the penalties, the disallowed goal, the penalties. Like it was just unbelievable viewing. So I was felt so fortunate to tune in on the minute that I did.
Yeah, so I this is my rock and roll lifestyle. Me and my son was watching the Masters snooker. And so we missed the first half, and I went, look, come on, we've got to watch the second half because obviously that's when all the action's going to. At least then we can stick around. If it does go to penalties, we're in. So we watched it from half time, and I got to be honest with you, the game itself, certainly second half, was the worst, best game of football I've ever seen. It was like literally watching an under-9s game of football. There was no tactics to it. It was a shambles. Kind of gilt edge chances missed. It was all over the place. It was absolutely bonkers. One of the softest disallowed goals I've ever seen in my life in terms of what happened for Senegal. And so you're thinking, oh my God, that's absolutely disgusting. And then to go down the other end and get one of the softest penalties you're ever going to see. And then the complete debacle. Now, I don't know what you think about this, but obviously the rumours are circulating. And again, obviously, there's no point going over too much of this, but just to get your view on the only reason why the Senegal players came back out was because their deal had been struck between certain players for Morocco to miss the penalty on purpose.
The only thing that I have against that theory is he was in floods of tears afterwards. Like it to me, it just seemed a genuine reaction to missing a penalty in such a high stakes game. Because if it was organised, you wouldn't imagine that he'd have been crying about. Like he was devastated. That was the only thing that got me against that theory. But I mean, the most bizarre penalty. But then even the celebration, like that, that's what then puts the theory into context from the other side. Is the Senegal players didn't celebrate, did they? Apart from
Correct.
the keeper who gave it that.
Yeah,
they just ran off like they knew, which is why it gives the theory a bit of credibility as well. So it's a real random one. So I just thought Brahim Diaz doesn't react the way he does if it was organised and he knew he was going to miss.
Yeah, So for me, the lack of celebration, based on everything that's just happened, including your goal being disallowed, because don't forget there was a big melee, not a punch up, but there was definitely like pushing and shoving, and when the referee was at the VAR screen, you could see it all sort of kicking off behind him. Obviously, arguments in terms of being on the pitch, being off the pitch. If my team had then saved that penalty, we'd still be running around the pitch now celebrating that you saved the penalty.
Oh, I'd have Jose Mourinho'd it down the touchline. I'd have been on my knees.
You'd be giving it a big. You'd be in their face. You'd be Martin Keown, Ruud van Nistelrooy in it, wouldn't you? The fact that they all just went, right, off we go. We're going to run up the pitch for the goal kick. Doesn't make any sense. I'm not saying they did it, but just like the emotion of that moment. And I was sat at home on my sofa, and I'm not linked to either team in any way, shape, or form. And I was jumping about more than they were.
Yeah, I think the ironic thing about that game and all the publicity that it's got is the AFCON has never had as much publicity and as many viewers as it ever has as that game provided. But I do think it's done it irreparable harm on its reputation. Because, I mean, when you just look at the videos going around about the towel, that wouldn't happen in League One or League Two, would it? You know, like non-league football, that wouldn't happen. It'd be reported, stamped out. Like, I just think it's brought that tournament. Yes, it had so many eyeballs on it and everything. It was being spoken about for a couple of days. But, I mean, for me, I just went away from it going, that's an absolute farce. And
100%.
I think it's lost so much credibility, even though it's never had as many eyeballs on it.
I can't. Yeah, like I say, the towel situation for the referee, the linesmen, the officials, FIFA were there for somebody not to get their head around the fact that you've got ball boys and match officials
Players,
or
subs.
Like, what are you doing? Like, someone has to get a grip. Like, I wouldn't let it happen in an under-14 game. It's absolutely nuts.
It's just, I mean, that's just blatant cheating, isn't it? I mean, it's not like it should affect the outcome of the game because they're just trying to steal his towel, but he's trying to gain an advantage through nicking the opposition's towel and his water bottle. And I just thought that's going to do it so much harm.
What I thought, I have to give I think he's their reserve goalkeeper or third choice goalkeeper.
Yeah, fair play to him.
Yeah, because I would have sparked someone. I would have been like, you are back up and I'm going to knock you out, mate. Like the fact that you're running away from some kids because they're nicking your towel, I would have not been taking none of it. Would have been fist fighting pretty quickly. So
I couldn't believe, Rich, that this wasn't the first time it's happened. It's happened. Whoever Morocco have played, they've done it to every goalkeeper.
Yeah.
After the first game, that would have been in League Two, the Championship, any league, non-league in England, that would have been stamped out. If you do that again, you're out. Like, you're done. And the fact that's happened in every round of the AFCON, including the final when it's had all those eyeballs on it, is just an absolute farce.
Still, at least there's not a World Cup there in any time soon. Oh, that's not true, is it? There is a World Cup going there in 2030. So let's hope that they get to nip that in the bud before then, because, like you say, also, if you haven't looked at the videos of all the penalties that Morocco got compared to the penalties that weren't given against Morocco, that's quite an interesting watch as well. If you go back and look at the 6 or 8 penalties that arguably, and again, Brian and Buemo for Cameroon, if that's not a penalty, then I don't know what is. So yeah, very interesting, very enjoyable Sunday night, and again, definitely glad I caught it live because it was absolutely spectacular TV viewing. If it wasn't a disaster for African football moving forward. Talking of disasters for football. West Ham averted one at the weekend, having beaten Tottenham at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It gives them a lifeline, but however, they do now face, I think, a very difficult challenge on the early kickoff on Saturday, where they host Sunderland. Off the back of obviously that win we just spoke about against Crystal Palace. I mean, firstly, obviously, I think we spoke last week about being called the El Sakiko. I think we can come on to Thomas Frank and how much longer he's got in the job when we speak about Spurs. It's kept Nuno in a job. Does that win give them any hope of staying up, or are they still absolutely certain to go down, in your opinion?
I still feel that they're the prime candidates, ahead of the other two, which are down, in my opinion, just because I don't think they've got enough goals in them. But then when I look at Forest, I mean, I thought they defended well against Arsenal, but I didn't ever think that they were going to score. And I mean, that's the difference with the two teams. The thing, when I look at it now, trying to be as objective as I can, I feel that West Ham probably have a little bit more about them with goals wise. I just think Forest are a bit tighter at the back. So it's what's going to get you more points. Like, I think West Ham will probably nick more of the odd win here and there. And Forest might nick more draws, and it might just be enough to get this 5-point gap. That might just be enough to keep them up. So, I mean, when I look at this game, West Ham Sunderland, I think Sunderland, even though they did win, are slightly on the decline. I think they've had their high and are sort of starting to play to their level. I do feel that win for West Ham is going to buoy them. So I've gone for 1-1. I can't split this. I think the home advantage for West Ham will probably get them a point.
See, I think what you have to bear in mind here is the West Ham Spurs factor. That West Ham could go, 36 of the 38 games defeats, and they'd win 2, both would be against Spurs. It is a big game for them. That is a fact. It's undeniable, and they seem to find a way of. They were the first team I remember winning at the stadium that wasn't obviously Spurs. So that's a big game. So I think it's really important that we don't factor that into this new kind of turnaround of where they're at. Going back to your previous point, I think Nottingham Forest new centre forward that I think they've got over the line is meant to be an absolute brute and a beast. So I think that they're trying to address.
He's a old football manager legend.
Yes.
Lorenzo Luca. He's about 6'6".
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, for me though, on that, I mean, unless they play with 2 up front and go proper old school Sean Dyche, I quite like the forward that they've got. Is it Igor something like that? He's a Brazilian, isn't he, up front? I don't mind him. I think he's got a few goals in him. He holds the ball up when he leads the line. I think for them, they need more creativity behind, because Morgan Gibbs White has gone missing. His wanted posters out for him. He's completely gone missing. I think they needed more creativity rather than a goal threat.
Yeah,
But we'll see.
like you say, it's the same as your defensive record isn't only about your defenders. The midfields out and forwards have to defend, and vice versa. Goal scoring isn't only about the centre forward. But I do think that he will suit the way that Sean Dyche wants to go about it.
Yeah.
So what? But my point is, I don't want us to kind of go right now. West Ham have turned the corner because they've won a game. Because actually, it still was a very scrappy game. It took the 90s, whatever it was, and for all intents and purposes, I haven't watched the game. If I'm being honest, I've seen the goals, obviously in highlights. But Spurs were the better team, which worries me for West Ham as well. So for me, I think this is actually an away win, and I think it's going to be West Ham 1, Sunderland 2, because obviously Sunderland will now have their quota of AFCON players back. I know they've got some injuries. I think they will get back to a little bit more of a form that we've seen, and of course, obviously beating Crystal Palace last week was a good little bounce back. So for me, I think I see Sunderland just pipping this, but again, a very interesting kind of way to kick off the game week. Which again, if West Ham were to fall behind, I can see that fan base turning on the board really, really quickly. And again, that's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. So for me, I still think West Ham are obviously very clearly heavy favourites. I don't see them catching Nottingham Forest as it stands. Having said that, next couple of weeks, if they can win 2 out of 3, 3 out of 5, you could see, like you say, them catching Nottingham Forest, and that'd be very interesting. And of course, it will give West Ham fans satisfaction for the rest of their lives, knowing that it turned around at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium as those 3 points that could be the difference between staying up and going down.
Yeah, and the new blood that's come into West Ham, and I've already said I don't particularly rate the forward that's come in, but just new blood into the club and the team gives a bit of a lift, doesn't it? So I don't expect West Ham to sort of take that win and go on a run, because I just don't think they're good enough, and I do think they're the third worst team in the league and therefore go down. But if they're going to try and put together a run of results draws, going unbeaten for a period of time, you've got to use that previous result to kick on, haven't you? So
100%.
Yeah. I'm trying to give West Ham the benefit there and going for 1-1.
Yeah, no, that's what we're here for. We're just having an honest conversation about how you see the games going. It's all fair. It's all good. No bias. That's the whole point of it. Interestingly, on the other side of that coin, the first 3 o'clock kickoff is Burnley hosting Tottenham Hotspur, who are in disarray. First question right off the bat: will Thomas Frank be the Spurs manager at the kickoff of that game, Fran?
Kickoff of the game, yes, I think he will.
Okay. Should he be the manager at the kickoff of that game?
What a terrible question. Thanks for that. I think it's really hard to come into a club and perform almost miracles with some of the players in the squad that you've got. However, they've been that bad. There's no patterns of play. You can't really see what's trying to go on there, whether it's just super defensive, all out attack. At least with Ange, you knew what you were getting. You knew there was a plan. And I think that's the thing that is going to kill him here. Do you know, if there was, you could see in a Conte, there's a tactical plan here. He's going to play 3 at the back and you can almost see what's going, but the results aren't coming. There just isn't there's no hope there for you to say that this will improve. So for me, I think he's a dead man walking. Like you said, the question is, when does that happen? I think he'll get this game.
So my because it's interesting, this point is that my question is, the Tottenham team is obviously massively underperforming, and I know football's not played on paper, by the way, right? So just to be clear, I'm not a complete idiot. I know that it's not played on paper, but when you look at the squad that they put out on Saturday, and we compare it to the squad that Everton put out at Aston Villa, how many of the Everton players get into the Tottenham starting 11 currently? And Everton go to Aston Villa and win 1-0, look absolutely solid, whereas Spurs, even with whatever they've got, would have gone to Aston Villa and lost 3-1. That's on the manager, right? That's not on the players. We have to be clear that some of the players have clearly down tools and don't want to play for him, but the squad is not as bad as the results are proving to be. So therefore, this has to be that the manager isn't setting them up properly. Someone that came across as being this sort of tactical genius when he was at Brentford has actually been found out to be a tactical nomad. He doesn't have any tactics by the looks of it.
I think your question on who gets into that squad, I think there's probably 2. Illiman and Dye probably gets in ahead of Odegaard, and Jack Grealish, which ironically isn't Everton's player, probably gets in ahead of Matthias Tell. I don't think anyone else would really get into that. Probably James Garner might get into the midfield, possibly. He's playing well at the minute, but
Jordan Pickford definitely does, right? Jordan Pickford definitely does. He definitely would improve Spurs, no doubt about it. But like I said, when you look at the rest of it, it's very similar. My point is that, I'm not picking on everyone. I could have picked another team. I could have picked Brentford or whether.
Yeah, get the point. I think the main thing here is Spurs have, for me, because I know I spoke to you about who do we think the next manager should be. The point I tried to make here is Spurs have gone down the route of they've had Jose Mourinho, they've gone for a superstar manager. They've tried, Ange, who's a developing manager with a very flamboyant style of play. They've tried so many different types of manager that I think the DNA of the club has almost become lost a little bit, which is why when Frank was appointed, I was quite excited because it's a project that you can go, he's going to be here for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, just gradually improve every single year. And then you've got like a blueprint to carry on forward. It's gone that horribly wrong. I don't know where they go from here. I honestly don't. I've heard rumours of Pochettino. I think that's a massive backward step in my opinion. I wouldn't be going back to Pochettino. Alonso's the dream. It'd be unbelievable, wouldn't it? You get in here and just go on and create this team in your image. Sell as many players as you want, bring as many as you want in. Spurs obviously got a great, what's called PSR stance, haven't they? So it's possible, but is he going to go to Liverpool? I just don't know where they go.
Yeah, so my understanding is that Alonso is holding out for Liverpool, so he's not going to take anything until that's either a definite yay or a definite nay in terms of either keeping slot or not. And he'll wait to the way that when a manager gets fired is that they don't get we talk about this payoff. They don't get the payoff. They get paid until they find another job. So, Alonso can have the rest of the year off in terms of the season and be paid his salary and work something out in the summer when obviously lots of jobs become available. Again, only rumour is that they're going for the other side of Madrid in Xavi Hernandez as being someone that's available and someone that would play the type of football that Spurs believe is their DNA. But again, maybe hesitant in terms of, and I have also had probably about 14 different people message me in different ways saying that he's been given the Dortmund game because it was too close to Saturday for them to do anything else, and he'll be gone by Saturday. He will not be the Tottenham manager on Saturday. They've got 11 fit first team players. Tonight they're going to be playing a whole bunch of their academy. It could get nasty. The stands are going to be empty. Tottenham need to do something very, very quickly to turn this round because the only way they're going to stay up this year is if the three teams at the bottom don't improve. That's the nuts and bolts of it at the moment. They're in relegation form. And by the way, I'm going Burnley 2, Tottenham 1.
I have gone for 1-1, and that is just on the basis that I don't believe that Burnley have enough to beat Spurs. I still think with the 11 on the pitch. Yeah, when you look and you look at West Ham and you go, they've got Jared Bowen. Whereas I look at the Burnley team and I can't. They're more of a team than some individuals, aren't they? I've gone for 1-1, but yeah, if you were going to back anyone at the minute, you'd have to back Burnley, wouldn't you? But I'm sitting on the fence again, 1-1.
Yeah, for me, I think that the way that the way it's fallen with Matthias Tell now being removed from the Champions League squad, him and his camp are absolutely furious. He's going to down tools. Romero doesn't want to play for the fella. Van der Ven doesn't want to play for the fella. Jed Spence doesn't want to play for the fella. Obviously Paulinho's now injured. Ben Davies has broken his ankle, so he's out for the season, if not forever. It's an absolute shambles between both the system and the injury record. I've never known anything like it in any team. I think they've lost 8 players in 4 games now, when you include Kudus, Paulinho, Xavi Simons picked up an injury, Archie Gray picked up an injury, Ben Davies picked up an injury. It's an absolute joke. And for that reason alone, I don't think they can field a proper team on Saturday. The players that will be on the field don't want to play for him. Burnley are, I'm almost tempted, I'm not going to do it because I'm not that crazy, but to put Burnley as my banker of the weekend. They are going to win that game, no doubt about it.
Well, let me tell you on your banker, you're a plus 85, so you can risk a tenner here to send it to the moon.
Yeah, I'm
confident.
I'm not that confident. That's why I'm not going to do it. But I'm confident that Burnley beat Tottenham. I cannot see a way of Spurs winning the game until they make some both changes on the pitch and off the pitch. And the club is absolutely in turmoil and disarray. And I don't know why, if I was a player, that I would join Spurs right now. I think they've got a real problem.
Are you going 2-1 there?
Yeah, 2-1 Burnley.
2-1. On a quick side note then, so you're saying that Dortmund, Spurs tonight, you reckon Dortmund should beat Spurs?
Not should. Yeah, I'd be dumping. Yeah, absolutely, no doubt about it. Like, there's no way
Yeah.
that.
Dortmund are 29-20 with Bet365, so you're getting more than even money. So say you put 20 quid on, you're getting 50 quid back effectively.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, look. Yeah, Xavi Simons is. I think they're going to try and play him, but he's carrying a knock. Yeah, I think you're going to have to go with what Adogi's coming back, but not full fit. You got Jed Spence probably left. Van de Ven can't play tonight, by the way. He's suspended.
Mm.
Conor Gallagher's not in the Champions League squad and can't be. They've just removed Tell. I trust me, they ain't winning tonight, mate. No chance.
There you go. Separate back, so not the game week 23 bank, but Dortmund to beat Spurs. There's your money for the weekend's bet.
Yeah, yeah. But we move on to what? Oh, you've gone 1-1. Yeah, is that what you're doing? 1-1. Sorry, I got
1-1.
on a. We move on to again another really interesting game. Two clubs that you would argue are currently sort of doing way better than Tottenham. Fulham host Brighton. The news today is broke that Fulham has signed Oscar Bob. I think that is some bit of business for Fulham. I think that's a great little signing. I can't believe he hasn't gone to a higher level than that. I think that is absolutely going to add a little bit of salt and pepper to this Fulham team.
Has that been confirmed that he's gone now? Because I've seen that he was linked.
I think that Romano has given it a here we go. I believe I haven't looked for an hour or so, but I'm pretty confident that they've agreed. I think it's a £34 million fee for Oscar Bob.
That's tremendous business by Man City, isn't it? Somebody who's not played too much. Yes, he's got a lot of talent, but that's effectively Guehi and his wages paid for PSR perspectives because he's an academy player, isn't he?
Yeah.
So PSR wise, that's done. I mean, that's a good signing for Fulham, though. You're right. I think that's exactly what they need. Somebody on, I presume he's going to play on the wing or the 10 role, but just a bit more creativity for that team. And he's a young player who's going to improve. So, yeah, I like that bit of business.
And what it does, by the way, is obviously they've got Harry Wilson that's on a free at the end of the season. So obviously there's a bit of jeopardy there. They're striking early. They're replacing a potential problem before there's a problem. And if they get to keep Harry Wilson, then all of a sudden you've now got some strength in depth. Of course, this is 11th play 12th. Both of them a little bit hit and miss in terms of up and down and round and round. But both of them more than safe and punching above their weight again. Obviously Brighton off the back of that 1-1 draw last night against Bournemouth with a Weldy that kind of saved them at the end there. But, again, Brighton can dial it up or dial it down as they go through, and Fulham at home are always pretty solid, difficult place to go. So off the back of all of that, I've actually gone for a Desmond. I've gone 2-2. I think this could be a really thoroughly entertaining game.
I have gone for Fulham 1, Brighton 0. Watching the game yesterday, for the first 15 minutes, you would have thought that Brighton were going to win 5-0. And then just completely lost all momentum and shape. Considering that's against the Bournemouth team that haven't really picked up any points in 10, 15 games. I was really surprised by that. And I just think Brighton have got a bit of a lack of firepower at the minute. The nice, neat, tidy football in and around the box, but that little finishing touch just doesn't seem to be there. So I've just gone for Fulham to nick it 1-0.
Yeah, look, they're both very hot and cold, aren't they? You and Brighton go and beat Man United away from home. Danny Welbeck looks like prime Messi and Ronaldo, and then the next week they struggle. It's just, I think that's the difference between a Fulham and a Brighton and a Arsenal. Man City is that consistency level. They can do it occasionally, they can't do it week in, week out.
Yeah, it's a tough game to predict, isn't it? It's like you said, you just don't know what Fulham or what Brighton will turn up, and that's the main reason why they are 11th and 12th.
Yeah, exactly right. But again, I think people like you and I, who cares? But we have to start respecting that 11 and 12 is actually a fantastic place for both those teams to be, based on the way that the teams beneath them spend money, etc. So I think that's a really good indication where both teams are.
Wish my team were 11th or 12th in the Premier League.
Yeah, like I say, there's at least, doing the maths, 80 other teams beneath them in the football pyramid that would agree, right? Before you go further down the food chain. A team that should be, in their eyes, at the top, and a team that are definitely struggling this season. Manchester City host Wolverhampton Wanderers at the Etihad, 3 o'clock, last of the 3 o'clock Saturday kickoffs. Now, 4 weeks ago, this is, pick a number, right? 6-0 Man City, 7-0 Man City. Obviously, that's not the case now. Wolves have turned a corner. Man City have turned the corner the other way. Is this actually now quite a tricky little game to predict?
I think it's a tricky game to predict because, like you said, a few weeks ago, it would have been 5-6, 7-0. Now, I mean, I predicted 2-0 because I think Wolves will do what they've done previously of defending deep, and they've looked very good doing this, by the way. Very hard to break down, great shape. Just don't have a lot going forward, and rightly so. That's all they're trying to do is stop goals to stay in games. Man City, I think, will struggle to break them down. But with the quality that they've got, I can see them doing it around the 60-minute mark, which should then open Wolves up for a second. I can't see this being 3-4, 5-0, though, because I don't think Man City are that good at breaking a low block down. I think it's going to take, very similar to the Newcastle game, I think it's going to take them a lot longer to break them down. But I just think, like I say, Haaland, getting some of the chances that Newcastle do, he'll take one of them.
Yeah, I think I said this last week. It baffles me why Man City just don't become experts at breaking down the low block. It feels like they've kind of got, as we said, they go out to the right, it comes back again, out to the left, comes back again. I think they need to kind of try and do that transit from defence to attack a little bit quicker. But again, that's just, or at least have that as an option. But again, who am I to tell Pep Guardiola what to do? I've been very impressed with, as we keep talking about what Wolves are doing. It maybe if they'd have made the change a little bit earlier, maybe they could have caught some teams up, and maybe could have. But if they carry on this trajectory, they're going to absolutely come, bounce down into the championship and come straight back up again if they can keep the Newcastle squad. It looks like they're in a really good spot. I appreciate that's probably not going to make the Wolves fans feel any better, but I've genuinely been really impressed with how they're starting to pick up, and their form, by the way, if you look over the last 5 games for Manchester City and Wolverhampton Wanderers, is exactly the same for both teams. They're both in exactly the same amount of form: 3 draws, 1 defeat, 1 win. So, makes it much more difficult. But of course, it's at home. Of course, Mark Gahey comes into that sort of injury-stricken defence that is exactly what they've paid the big bucks for him to do. And I think that instantly makes them better. You look at what they've got going forward, they will have too much. I've gone Man City 2, Wolverhampton Wanderers 0.
Yeah, that's same snap.
But that is, like I say, 4 or 5 weeks ago, that would have been a much bigger swing the other way. We round off Saturday's fixtures with what has been historically a great game. Bournemouth hosting Liverpool, 5:30 kickoff. However, this Bournemouth team is starting to kind of, I know they did a good job last night, if not a great job, but they need some reinforcement. When we talk about teams that need to go and spend some money, Ariella came out last night kind of basically pleading with his owners to go and get him some backup, and they've signed someone today from Ferencváros, who I'm not going to sort of try and, well, I probably shouldn't have tried to name the team either, to be fair, but they're looking to add. Liverpool are obviously all over the place in terms of form. Lots of draws. I think that's 4 of the last 4 games have been drawn. Drawing at Burnley was a massive shock. Again, this could really be anything, couldn't it? Obviously Mo Salah's now back. Bournemouth at home are a slightly different proposition, but for me, I still feel that Liverpool should and could have too much for Bournemouth. But I think this could be a lot tighter than it might have been in other circumstances.
Yeah, just on Liverpool's result against Burnley, I think it's just a proven example of why you don't stick a 1 to 5 shot in an accumulator, because it just doesn't add you that much value, does it?
Yeah, all right, thank you. Yeah, move on.
And that's not a dig at you. That's a dig at in general. I've been stung by it where you're getting a 3 to 1 shot, and then the one that lets you down is 1 to 5, and you look and it's added £5 to your acca. So I think it's a lesson to learn on that sort of thing. I'd be far more looking to put Liverpool away against Bournemouth in my accumulator than I would be Liverpool at home at 1 to 5. But Bournemouth, I don't know if you saw the stat in the game yesterday, and it showed in the past 2 or 3 seasons, the players that they'd sold for the values that they'd sold them. They've made nearly £300 million, which is a great achievement for a club like Bournemouth to be purchasing players for 5-10 million, selling them at £50 million. But then when you looked at the replacements, we've been saying how Brighton have done it, Bournemouth have done it previously. They are now, as you mentioned, the manager pleading for replacements. They need them. They've banked all that money. And when you look at that squad, it's paper thin. They need some players to come into that squad, because if not, I can't see where they're going to get many points. They're still a decent team. They're not going to be threatened for relegation this season, but next season they could well be. So I think they've got to start rebuilding now. There's strong rumours around Fatawu from Leicester going to Bournemouth. He'd be a decent signing, but 35 million is what they're being quoted. For me, he's not worth that. I'd be looking elsewhere to go and try and get 2 or 3 players to boost the squad for that level of funds.
Yeah, what just hit me then, and I never thought of this before, while you was referencing Brighton again, it actually is interesting, isn't it? Because what Brighton have done is they've sold lots of players, but they've always had Lewis Dunk at the back. They've kept their talisman, their captain, if you like, and they've got Van Hekken next to him that's been there for 5 or 6 years, and the keeper's now been there for quite a period of time. And so actually, that core of those 3 have been the same, haven't they? Whereas you look at the reason I reference that is Bournemouth losing both centre backs and the left back, and the keeper changed. over a summer, it's a big price to pay, isn't it? And I know they've got good money for it, but it's a big risk defensively when they've gone from looking pretty solid defensively last season to all of a sudden now they always concede at least one, don't they? Which means, of course, you've got to score 2 or more to win the game.
Yeah, and that was my thoughts on the game yesterday. I was very surprised that Brighton didn't break them down, because when you look at Bournemouth's defensive record, it is one of the worst in the league. Only West Ham and Burnley have shipped more goals than them, and it's only by one and 3 goals. It's the worst. So I was fully expecting Brighton at home to score against them. I was really surprised by how toothless they were, but how Bournemouth did defend well. But the record shows that they can see goals. So they need to go out and buy some more players, don't they? Because if not this season, it's 10-point gap. That's not going to be. Don't think that'll be caught. But next season will be the season where they'll start struggling, because they've lost those 27 points have been picked up by Semenyo. If we're being honest, most of them are attributed to Semenyo.
Yeah, big chunk.
Yeah, he's not there anymore. So where are the results coming from?
Yep. No, and again they'll lose another 2 players, won't they? But so. And of course, the manager will probably leave in the summer as well if they don't back him. I've gone for Bournemouth 1, Liverpool 2.
I have gone for exactly the same.
Bournemouth 3, Liverpool 0 then. Really interesting game kicks off. Of course, there are 3 games that kick off at the same time, but in terms of alphabetically, Brentford hosting Nottingham Forest at the G-Tech Community Stadium. I think, bless you, is that a sneeze?
Sorry, it was cough.
Oh, I said bless you. I think this is a really interesting game to get a sense of where both teams are. I think it could be quite an interesting game in terms of the actual stylisticness of this all, and I think both teams will be looking at this thinking they can win the game, because obviously that they are both at us, albeit in league table tells otherwise. But you would say on paper that the squads are very similar, aren't they?
Yeah, on paper, when you look at it, like I said, I'm baffled sort of by Forest, really. When you look at their squad on paper, it looks still a decent squad. It's not changed that much sort of overnight from last season. But, I mean, just the way that they're playing and the confidence, I mean, just even the noise by the fans, like, it's got a completely different look and feel to it, even though the names haven't changed. So, I mean, I've gone for a Brentford 2, Forest 1 result here, because when I look at Brentford, yes, they can sometimes blow very cold, but they've been very consistent this season. And at home, I just can't see how, even though, like you said, the 2 squads look very similar, how Brentford don't get the result here, because Forest just look shot to me.
Well, you'll be delighted or worried to know that I've gone for exactly the same score, which
I thought you had when you made a slight noise as I said 2-1.
I think that's 3 we've got exactly the same now, isn't it? I feel like there's an accumulator coming on somewhere. Maybe not. Anyway, certainly 2. Wolves. Oh, no, that's the last 3. And Man City, you said 2-0. Bournemouth.
Last 3 all in a row. But so when you were saying it's accumulator, we got 1 and 3 right last week. So
yeah, but it's a new week.
Don't be putting too much on it.
It's a new week. We're only forward steps, Fran. We're looking forward, not backwards. You're only as good as your next prediction. Yeah, look, I again, we spoke about it. I think Brentford have been one of the most impressive teams of the season. Of course, the defeat last weekend takes them out of that kind of top 5. But the fact we've been saying it takes them out of the top 5, and they're still 7th. They're sat above Newcastle, Everton, Brighton, Palace, Spurs, not Forest. West Ham. You wouldn't have had that at the start of the season, and there were one of many people's teams to go down. So I think it's going to be a real good test for Brentford to see how they bounce back. Obviously, they were on a very rich vein of form, weren't they, in terms of picking up points and results. So they've now had that bump. Can they come back and go again? And I fully expect them to be just a little bit too tactically astute. I think what he's doing with them tactically is great. I think Sean Dyche is probably stuck a little bit between a rock and a hard place, trying to play a little bit of expansive, trying to kind of sturdy them up, not really working. Like you say, their goal difference is -13, which doesn't feel like a Nottingham Forest team of the last 3 or 4 years. So I think this will be a home win, and Nottingham Forest also are a team that, even though they signed 150 players in the last 6 windows, need a little bit more to kind of get them away from West Ham. Because if West Ham did get that early result against Sunderland, all of a sudden the pressure's right back on Forest, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I was just going to sort of echo what you've just said on the sort of goals and the goal difference side of things. Forest have conceded 34 and Brentford have conceded 30. So roughly, very similar. When you look at the goals scored, though, Forest have scored 21 which is the second lowest in the league. And then when I look at Brentford has scored 35.
Yeah.
That's the difference there. So if anything, the reason that you would have to go for Brentford is the goals for. Like you might get the result wrong. It could be a draw, 0-0, 0-1, or whatever that is. But you can't look at elsewhere except Brentford. Surely, based on the goals for, 14 goal difference between the two teams.
Just on that, Brentford have scored more goals than Newcastle, Liverpool, and Aston Villa this season.
Yep.
That is mind bending, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And again,
one behind Chelsea.
Yeah, it's absolutely mind bending that Brentford are doing what they're doing. Like I say, if Arsenal win the league, I guess Mikel Arteta gets the manager of the season just because of how long it's been for them to do that and what he's overcome to get there. But if they don't, if Manchester City win the league, for me, if Brentford can finish in the top 7, he needs to be manager of the season. It'd be unbelievable effort.
No,
But a long way to go. A long way to go, of course. And of course, we've seen with Sunderland and other teams that Nottingham Forest a couple of years ago when they were pushing on for Champions League and didn't quite get there. The left and right turn that's head on their trajectory is obviously massive. So let's see if we can get the 4th in a row to match. Crystal Palace host Chelsea again 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I'd have given you a very, very different score here. But as we've alluded to already, Palace are in turmoil, aren't they? And I can't see how they get. The manager doesn't want to be there. Clearly, he's all come out and said, "I'm leaving in the summer," so he's put that to rest. There was rumours of them sacking him on Monday off the back of his outburst. I think he's going to continue to outburst until they do sack him. Whereas Chelsea, with a new manager, a couple of rumours about a new centre-back coming in. Very clear passages of players expertly broken down by Jamie Carragher last night on Monday Night Football. If you haven't seen it, this feels like possibly the perfect time to play Palace.
It does. I've made Chelsea my banker of the week. And like you said, I think that's more because of the turmoil that Palace are in as opposed to how good Chelsea are. Said it, I did see the analysis by Jamie Carragher, and you can see that, an impact has been made already. However, that Chelsea squad, again, another team that you look at, you can pick holes all the way through, like we said last week. So I don't think it's because of how good Chelsea are that I'm making Chelsea my banker. I think it's more the reverse of just how poor Palace have been and the feel around the club. They're in absolute turmoil. So I've gone for Palace 0, Chelsea 2.
Chelsea 2?
Yeah, have you?
Yeah, I have, yeah.
You got the same. There you go. There's 4 in a row. And I've also made them my banker of the week.
Yeah, me too. And the reason why I have is because they're evens. Even money on Chelsea feels nuts to me.
Yeah, that's the exact reason. Say that I've found them at 19 to 20. So yeah, pretty much even money. Which when I looked at the fixtures, they were the first ones that sort of stood out on the page, just going, Palace are in turmoil. They've got injuries as well. Chelsea, new manager bounds, have looked okay as well. Seems to have a little bit of an improvement. I just thought that was great value.
Yeah, completely agree. We'll do well to get the next 2 the same. Now we might get the result the same, but we'll do very well if we get this next score the same, Fran. I'll be very surprised. Newcastle host Aston Villa in what is a really intriguing game.
I think we've got this right because mine's a bit of a random score, which I think the way you said that, yours is random as well.
Okay, all right. Well, let's jump to the score, then we'll do the bits. So go on. What you got?
I've gone for 2-2.
Oh, I've gone for 3-3. It's a draw though. That's all you need. So that's it's another one that's 5 on the spin. Oh my god, this is the I might have to reinstate all my betting apps to have a little quid on this one. We might need to work out what it's going to be as well. So
if all of these come in, then there won't be another pod next week. That'll be it'll be on a beach.
It will be, but it'll just be from a beach. Exactly right. Look, I think this is a really interesting game. Obviously, let's just start with Unai Emery's outburst after the defeat to Everton. I haven't done a deep dive on it myself. I just thought it was really interesting timing of him coming out and talking about them not being a top 5 team when they clearly are. What do you think he was trying to achieve with that message? Who's he talking to? Is he talking to the players? Is he talking to the fans? Board? What's he doing there? I don't get it.
So I thought there was 2 people he was talking to there. I thought the first one, it was a clear indication to the board that he probably wants a bit more investment, taking away John Duran. And when you look at the level of investment they've had since then, I don't think it's been massive. I think what he's saying is if you want to be a top 4 or 5 team regularly, you need further investment. Whether that means you might have to sell one to bring 3 or 4 in, I just think he's probably looking at it going, you're not going to get a better chance to compete for the league than this season, and also to cement yourself as a top 4, 5, 6 club every single season than you are right now. So I think that was a message to the board. I also thought it was a message to the players, because I thought it was a bit of like reverse psychology on them to say, look, if you want to be in the top 4 or 5 conversation, you can't lose to Everton, especially in Everton that are on a very, very patchy run of form themselves. If they would have won there, they'd have still been 4 points behind Arsenal, which then you look at and you go, there's a chance. It just seems to have slipped away now, doesn't it?
Well, so the issue I have with that is that they literally have a problem in the sense that they're at 96% of their income on wages, so they're behaving above and beyond the top 5 team. That's not bad behaviour in terms of not giving the manager everything he needs. Arguably, they've gone too far in the spending, and that's the problem.
Well, I've said to you before, they remind me very much of the Leicester of old. Of Leicester used to spend 104% of turnover on wages, which is just complete mismanagement, isn't it? I don't think Villa are doing that, but I mean, they've got a very, very high wage bill where we've run through it before, and some of the players of the wages that they're on is just incredible. I think Unai Emery's just looking at it, when he looks at his bench and, he's had to take a loan of Jadon Sancho. He's probably looking, just going, I could do with a few more players here to really get us to where we need to be. So I think he's probably looked at it in a sense of a personnel as opposed to financial.
But they're linked. Like I don't understand. You have to be 7-year-old to not understand the two are linked. If you're spending that much on salaries, you don't have the money. It's like, depending on what report you listen to with GAIE, okay, £20 million sounds like, but apparently they've had to drop a massive sign-on fee, and he's on £300,000 a week. Like it's all linked though. It all still goes through to your ins and your outs. Like it's, again, this myth that we have to spend millions and millions. Like one of their best players is the midfielder. Is it what's his name? Kamada, not Kamada. Kamara, like on a free transfer, one of their best players this season. He's absolutely.
So was Yuri Tielemans free transfer?
Correct.
So the 2 midfielders who, both of them. I mean, Tielemans is, from what I've seen, has been their best player this year. Absolutely dictating games and controlling games. Looks really fit. I said ex-Leicester player on a free transfer. Like that's the sort of business you can go and attract good players. You don't always have to spend 40, 50 million. I think where he's looking from, when you do sell John Duran, who looked like, a potential well beater at one point, didn't he? The goals he was scoring looked unbelievable. Ollie Watkins looked like he wasn't going to be around there that long because of him. Sold him for a huge fee. And I just think the level of investment, when you look at it from that sense, just they've not really replaced anyone, have they? I can't think of a transfer I've looked at it and gone, oh, that's a tasty transfer for Villa. They seem to have really sort of just bought some random players, really, squad boosters, as opposed to improving the 11. Like that Gessend, I don't rate him at all. He seems to be a squad player.
But again, it goes back to my point that, like, you look at the squad and you look at what some of them do, like what Brentford did. Like if I look at the Brentford squad, like, would I be excited if my team was linked with any of the Brentford players? Like, probably not many of them. Maybe Collins in the centre forward. Like, that's what the manager's job is to make the best of what he's got, to make them better, to coach them into tactical aware. Like, that's what you've got to do, and you can't always just keep going, and I want another £50 million midfield player. At some point, we've got to start coaching players and using what we've got to be better.
Yeah, no, and I mean, Villa's argument would be, he's third in the league. He is coaching them very well.
Yes,
I think he's just looking at it. Yeah, he's just looking at it probably and just going, when are you going to get a better opportunity to challenge for the title with the position that I've put them in? If they could go and drop 50 million on someone, like I said, I don't think the PSR limits you now. I think that might be a message to the governing bodies as well, saying you are crippling me here. Financial fair play is a farce.
But on the other side of that coin, Newcastle will kick off more because they've got exactly the same problem, right? They are the ultimate team of PSR kind of delaying their growth and their potential. I don't see Eddie Howe. I mean, I appreciate Eddie Howe a little bit of a moment with the Carabao Cup with Semenya being out of play. But, Eddie Howe's going about, for me personally, I don't think Newcastle are doing as well as they could or should. But, ultimately, if Newcastle win this game, it puts them right back in the mix in terms of that Champions League piece. I just think it's a really interesting or bad piece of timing for Unai Emery because, let's be honest, at the start of the season, no one was talking about Aston Villa winning the league. If they could finish top 4, that for me is success this year based on what they've got and where they are and where they are in the food chain. To finish above Liverpool, Manchester United, Chelsea, Newcastle would be an absolute piece of work for Villa.
Success for Villa is having back-to-back Champions League campaigns. If you do that, the money that it brings into the club just allows you to grow and grow and grow.
Correct.
On the Newcastle front, I don't know about you. I thought Newcastle against Wolves looked very heavy leg. I thought, even though quite clearly they had the better team, better players, and still posed a little bit of a threat, it all came from crosses into the box. There wasn't anything where somebody's ran at somebody and they're causing problems, like a bit of creativity here and there. So I don't know whether the schedule is catching up to Newcastle. So I think it's a very tight game, which is why I've gone for a draw. But I do feel that there's definitely goals in this game.
Yeah, there was an interesting piece from Dan Gosling, of course, who's played under Eddie Howe at Newcastle, and he says that the reason why they have that Newcastle are either a team that are absolutely, 100% or look like they're at 30% is the way that Eddie Howe trains them. That every training session is full on, and so it just depends on where they are in that recovery process and how that fits. And I thought that was an interesting piece because Newcastle are either a team that you're like, Jesus, how do you cope with this? And it's the high press and it's full on, or they look quite mediocre. And I think Jan Visser hasn't landed particularly well. I know he looks threatening, but it doesn't look like scoring. Vartan Mulder is, not doing. Anthony Gordon, flat as to deceive, Langer hasn't done. So they're really relying on Harvey Barnes at the moment to kind of chip in with the goals.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to double down on my Voltemada shot after watching that game. I thought he looked. I don't see him becoming a Premier League forward. From what I've seen of him so far, like I said, could be wrong. He's young, can improve, but from what I've seen of him, not for me. Far too slow. I thought he looks an absolute donkey at the minute. I know Viss is out of form, but I'd be playing him every day of the week. I think he offers you far more, even off form.
Well, yeah, you could even go with Harvey Barnes, Anthony Gordon, and Langer as a front three if you're looking for a bit of pace. But yeah, let's leave Eddie Howe to worry about that now. Just to keep you updated, I have put in the last 5 scores, Fran, including the last one just as a draw, not as 2-2 or 3-3. We're currently at 19,500 to 1. Okay, so let's see if we can keep that.
The four correct scores and a draw.
Yes, 19,500 to 1. Let's see if we can make it 6. And I guess we'll probably, but maybe not anymore off the back of last weekend. Arsenal host Manchester United in a massive game, 4:30 Sunday. This is going to give me both an indication of where Manchester United are in terms of, is that a one-off last week because it was a local derby, etc., etc. But of course, where Arsenal are as well. They've been struggling a little bit more recently in terms of putting teams to bed. So let's jump straight to the score. What you got?
I've gone for Arsenal 2, Manchester United 1.
Oh my God! Yeah, me too. Here we go. Add it to the list. We are going to be millionaires, Fran. We are going to be millionaires. I'm getting excited now. Keep talking. So, you think that potentially that takes it to 156,000 to 1? By the way, you might need to find a few different bookies to put this on. But yeah, because you can't. So, by the way, that now takes you past the £5 limit because that will take you past the maximum payout of 500,000. So you cannot put a fiver on that anymore. This is a big game, though, right? All jokes aside, and leaving that to one side for a minute. This is a massive game for both teams, isn't it? Because obviously Manchester United looks just like a different outfit, different shape. Some players back from AFCON. Kobe Main, who I thought, he's made Amrin look stupid, hasn't he? By the performance he put in there. Amrin, you see him on the training ground. How have you not played that kid at some point? You've literally signed your own fate, haven't you, by not playing him?
Especially when you look at the players he was playing instead of him, Casemiro and Agate, just complete different level. Like you said, that made him look so stupid. What an easy win for Carrick, by the way, just to go, in you go, you've just made me look a genius. Say I'm making all this up. Say Glasner comes in the next 3 games. Carrick has boosted his reputation immediately by making one of the easiest decisions he'll ever make.
Yeah, he looked good. He made such a difference. I thought they had a bit off the bench. Yeah. Cunha coming in off the bench, I thought made them look stronger. Interesting that they still didn't play with Sesko, but I thought defensively, they absolutely deserved. The only thing you would say about that game was it was a surprise it was only 2-0, right? It could have been 3 or 4 or even 5-0, and I've not seen a team do that to Manchester City in a very, very long time.
Yeah. Do you know who I was really impressed with? And I think people have got to start giving him some credit. Harry Maguire.
I knew you was going to say that. Yeah, I
He's
agree. Yeah,
still a,
yes, yeah.
he's still a quality player. I think you could just see the difference in that defence when he played there. He's taken a lot of pelters, and obviously he was bought for a hell of a lot of money. He wasn't worth that money, but he's still a top Premier League defender, and just slotted in there after injury. And I thought he looked superb. I thought he made a massive. Him and Kobe Main, I thought was the biggest difference.
And the shape, right? Because the change of shape looked good. I thought they were, all over the pitch, man for man, just better and really positive. And it did highlight the fact that maybe actually Michael Carrick having been there and understanding the DNA, which has been a real buzzword this week of Manchester United and what it takes to be a Manchester United player as well as coach. I thought actually maybe there's something in that. Maybe they do need to look at that moving forward because they played like Manchester United fans want them to play, didn't they?
Front-footed. That's what they want.
Yeah,
That's what Man
yeah.
United expect. Front-footed football. Which,
Now,
when you look at the previous manager and the players in midfield, Ugarte and Casemiro, they're not going to give you that. Kobe Mainu gives you that. Harry Maguire, as good as a defender as he is, he's got his limitations, but one of his assets is carrying the ball, passing through the lines, allows you to be front-footed. So, yeah, I agree entirely. I think, like I said, the style suited the players that he brought in as well.
yeah, I thought it was a very, very impressive performance. I genuinely enjoyed it, but I didn't enjoy the Arsenal one. And, is this a case of Arsenal going to just win this league because they are just better than the rest of the crap we're having to watch? I'm still not sure that I think that Arsenal are expansive enough and I think they'll have enough to win the league because the rest of the teams keep dropping points unnecessarily. But this Arsenal team doesn't inspire me in the slightest. I don't get excited about watching Arsenal at the moment.
No, I don't at all. I think they'll win because as a general team, defensive structure, they won't concede many and therefore probably won't lose many games. But they're not gonna blow this league to bits. From a goals perspective, when you look at goals for, second, very very closely run by other teams, they're not going to go and absolutely destroy the league from winning games. It's going to be 1-0, 2-0 here and there. I still think they'll have enough to beat Manchester United. I think they're going to be too strong defensively, not concede too many chances. And Arsenal score goals from set pieces. They score goals from everywhere, don't they? They just don't score a lot of them. So I do feel they'll have enough to beat United, and I feel they'll have enough to win the league. I just don't think it's going to be a vintage title win. This won't be spoken about like some of the other title wins for other teams.
It will be by Arsenal fans. It definitely, and Thierry Henry made the point last night, didn't he? Around, we just asked him to win the league. We didn't ask him to do it in a specific style. And I think it's really important for Arsenal to start. If they can get the Carabao Cup as an example, I think that's going to be massive in their. I think if they lose the Carabao Cup final, assuming they get there based on what's happened so far, I think that starts to add pressure that the fans or the players don't need or want. I think get that over the line, and they can start talking about it. And like I say, it's not a vintage year of football across the whole Premier League, if we're being honest. But the Arsenal fans aren't going to care. The same as the Leicester fans didn't care when they won the league and it wasn't a vintage year for the rest of the teams. You've got to win when you can. And Arsenal have to win this year because I'm not sure they'll get the chance again.
Well, I'm going to go one step further and say I don't think this is a vintage football era. They're top of the Champions League group as well. And when you look at some of the teams around Europe, like you'd say, there's other teams that are PSG and Barcelona are quite exciting to watch. The rest of them are quite poor. I just think the era in general is quite poor. I don't think there's enough flair, enough attacking play. It's very systematic based. And they're still top. So, I think it just shows you the level of squad that Arsenal have got. But from an actual watching excitement point of view, I wouldn't be going out my way to go and watch it.
No, that's the convert that we definitely can't open it now, but definitely a can that needs opening down the line of system football has killed football's. Two things for me: system football and VAR. You add those two things together, and you've sucked all of the fun out of football. I used to love wingers being wingers and forwards doing forwards things. There is no creativity anymore. It is all about systems, like you say. But yeah, I think if football's not careful, you will see people start to turn away and going down the food chain where football is a bit more pure and free. So we are, what's that, 6 out of 6? 2, 4, 6 from 6 Go on, let's do this in reverse. Now we are where we are, because if this is the same, then we are absolutely going to be millionaires, Fran. So what have you got in terms of Everton hosting Leeds on Monday Night Football, 8 o'clock kickoff at the Winn-Dickie or whatever we call it these days? What have you got?
I have gone for 2-2.
1-1. It's a
Have
draw.
you?
It's another draw.
Yeah,
Got to add
I've
it
gone for
in.
2-2 just because Leeds are flying at the moment, just not blowing teams away. Everton, very hit and miss. That win, I think, will do them the world of good confidence-wise. I think this is a great game. I think it's got a lot of potential to be a great game. Really pleased to see it's the last game. Yeah, just can't split them.
So, if obviously 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 results that we've predicted to either be exactly the same score or a draw with it being a different outcome, we are now at 483,785 to 1.
Is that your new banker?
Listen, man, you know what?
There won't be any point in keeping a P&L, will there?
Right now, at this point, mate, I'd take 10p on that winning. I mean, like, genuinely, 10p would do me. I'd be very happy. That would be unbelievable. 483,000.
You've got to stick it on now.
100%. Look, for a quid to get £500,000 off a quid. I mean, if the podcast didn't go viral after that, mate, then I don't know what would. Absolutely, yeah. No, that's crazy that we've come seven to the same. Yeah, look, I think I've been really impressed with what they've done Leeds with the new change of system. I think it's really helped them. I think obviously Dominic Calvert-Lewin, as we said last week, is at the moment you have to say he's on the plane to the World Cup. He's definitely doing some. Aronson looks good. I think they've Anton Stack looks like he's come in and done some good bits and pieces. Defensively, they're sound. Everton are Everton. They can win 2-0 or lose 4. Like, they're all over the place. But for me, I just think that on Monday Night Football, it tends to be quite a cagey affair. They kind of see what everyone else does. A draw probably suits both teams a little bit. Neither team, Leeds obviously have still got one sort of eye over their shoulder, but another point there puts them on 26 points. Is going to keep them right out of the way of the mix. And for me, I can just see this being a very entertaining, high impact, high energy, blood and thunder, tackles flying in, maybe more yellow cards than goals. But yeah, for me, 1-1. And that
agreed.
That wraps up an unbelievable set of events. I don't think we've ever got 7 that close, have we? I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, just to sort of make it even more strange was that I've changed my £5 challenge to go for games that have over 2.5 goals. And then as I did it, I realised that my prediction of Everton 1, Leeds 1 wasn't over 2.5 goals. So I changed it for 2-2. So I did actually predict 1-1, which is funny. But to put them into my £5 challenge, I thought, well, I have to predict over 2.5 for it to actually come in. So yeah, I've gone. My £5 challenge is 4 games with over 2.5 goals. So I've gone for Bournemouth, Liverpool, Newcastle, Villa, Arsenal, Man U, Everton, Leeds, and that pays £48.23.
Okay. I've done my £5 challenge. I had it on the screen, but I've changed it because now I've done the other one. But so I've gone for Sunderland, Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea. Off the top of my head, I think it paid about £35 off of a fiver, and my banker of the week is as yours, which is Chelsea, which is double bubble.
Yeah, who was it? Sunderland, Man City,
Liverpool, and Chelsea.
Liverpool, Chelsea. Lovely.
So, Fran, I mean, I don't know what to say. Obviously, either we see each other next week or we don't. Obviously, if this comes off, then yeah, good luck. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your career, and it's been nice knowing you. I'll be on a beach somewhere.
Can you imagine it?
No, I can't at this point. But you never. Let's be honest. If the first 2 days come in, that Monday night would be an absolute. I don't think I would. I think the catch out button would be pressed before the ball's kicked, mate. For being honest with you, but we'll see what it looks like. Let's get there first. But as always, mate. We know it's very difficult to predict these games, as proven last week. So the chance of it happening are 483,785 for a reason. But I really, really enjoyed that. So as always, mate, where can people find us? Where can people shout abuse at us or laugh when our first score goes against us and the bet is done?
So to listen to the episodes, we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. On social media, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok.
Fran, as always, mate, fantastic work. Have a great week, and I look forward to speaking to you next week, bud, whatever the outcomes.